Good morning, Comrade. You're listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This is your weekly Good Morning Comrade. Jeff and Robert here on the show. Robert, what is up, dude?
Well, see, genocide is up, but I've allowed myself 48 hours just to finish up my schoolwork, and now I am playing as we speak. Honestly, I just exited a game of Marvel Rivals. It's pretty good. It is. I'm not going to fall into the Overwatch trap. I'm a 43-year-old man, and I am not going to take this game seriously. I'm not going to be a sweat lord.
As long as you're not playing League, I think you're good.
Yeah, but this has, it has a lot of the same lead. I find myself being like, hey, dog, like, your kill to death ratio, you got to step it up. But I have to be like, I'm getting upset over a baby game. Let's not do that. And like, honestly, like to, as a geopolitical show is what we dabble in. It's just Marvel Rivals is just one more sign of just like America on decline, because we've got, the game that it's aping is Overwatch, made by an American studio. That's just they ruined the game. They for many reasons we won't get into here. And Marvel Rivals is a game made by a Chinese company that is much more player friendly. It doesn't exploit you for now, and it's just a better experience. So it's just one more sign of just America's decline, and I'm here for it. All praise our Chinese overlords.
I cannot think of Marvel right now without like thinking of that video of Mahmoud getting abducted from his campus or from his building, and you saw that like this freaking Gestapo guy who's like coming and he's like wearing a Marvel Comics t-shirt. I'm just like, oh,
really? Man. I didn't watch it. I couldn't even get through it all. But
anyway,
there wasn't a Punisher t-shirt.
No, it was like it had like the Avengers like lined up on there.
That's beautiful, dude. That's beautiful. That's very MCU coded though.
Yeah,
that's not comic book coded. That's MCU.
Yeah,
like,
movies.
Oh, you like Marvel Civil War? Oh, make sure you never pick up the actual comic.
Yeah,
don't read that, because you're going to get your paradigm shifted, because it's about the Iraq war in Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, even Mark Miller didn't screw that one up. Anyway, we have a very special guest today. We have our good pal, Alex, who is she's the creator behind All Things Labor. She talks about organizing your workplace. And actually, you know what? You can speak for yourself. Tell us about All Things Labor, Alex, and just say hi to the people.
Hey, comrades. Happy to be here. Yeah, my name is Alex. Created a social media account on TikTok and Instagram and a couple of other Bluesky as well now, called All Things Labor. And basically, I created it about 4 years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, when my coworkers and I were organizing our second workplace. And that's kind of when TikTok was also starting to like pop off. And I thought, where are the rank and file who are speaking about their experience organizing their workplace, especially ones that look like me, who are brown women, who are Latinas. So, yeah, I decided to kind of just talk about our experience organizing, being part of the bargaining committee, filing unfair labor practices, kind of just like that whole experience and how it really radicalized me even further. And that's what I try to do now, is just continue to talk about union power, worker power, and how that power is actually what's going to get us the wins that we want for working people.
Yeah. And let me tell you, like, one of the things that I do like really appreciate and respect about the way that you cover these kinds of things and talk about these things, you talk about it from your own personal experience, and you talk about how you are doing, like, you have done organizing in your workplace, and that was sort of like a key component of how you what drives your content. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've
I'm
noticed.
sorry. I say this because like there's a lot of people who like talk like they know about this kind of stuff. And I don't mean to be mean or whatever. I'm not going to say any names, but there are people that like talk about this kind of stuff that like they sort of like talk like they know everything. But if you ask them if they ever organized their workplace, they'd be like, no.
Oh my God. Oh my God, let's talk about it. No, but yeah, 100%. I think there's a difference when you are an organizer or if you become a staff organizer and you're trying to tell workers, especially workers of color, low income workers, that they should, take these risks in the workplace. And if you haven't done it yourself, then how the heck are you? How are you? I don't know. It just feels
how
weird to me.
You possibly understand the stakes.
Like, I'm sorry, unless you're being like retaliated and harassed by the president of your organization, and like HR president is literally making you cry, and it's like all this entire like you don't have that lived experience of what it means to be a worker who is in fear of losing their job because you are speaking up about organizing. Like, then how are you over here telling other folks to do that? You know what I mean? So I think the fact that me and my coworkers have organized 3 different workplaces and have we actually just ratified our contract for the place that I'm working at right now about months ago. Yeah, so it's amazing. And signing up to be one of the shop stewards for our workplace as well, because that experience just made me realize that this is a lifelong struggle. And I remember the second time that we unionized, it wasn't an election. The first time we unionized, it was a voluntary recognition. So I do think it makes a really big difference when you actually kind of see the fight, especially if you're a worker who gets to sit on the bargaining table. If you have the opportunity, I will say it is so eye-opening. It is so eye-opening because when you are sitting across the president or the vice president of your organization who is making, almost $500,000 a year, telling you that you and your coworkers who can barely scrape by, are living paycheck to paycheck, don't deserve $1 raise.
Yeah, or healthcare, or the basics, paid sick leave, like the things that every job should have.
The most basic necessities, and you see them, or you see their attorney saying that to you. For me, it clicked something in me, and it made me realize this is a class war. There is a difference, and even after our election, I remember being like, "Yay, we won!" It was just like, I think about the Starbucks video, for Buffalo when they first won the election. I resonate with that so much because me and my coworkers, it was at the height of the pandemic. We were like in the house of one of my coworkers, and they were counting the elections, right? The National Labor Relations Board agent was counting the election, like the ballots, and it was kind of scared because it was a really close election. It was about 15 votes, and I think it was like 8-6 or something like that, right? And when we finally found out that we won, we were like jumping up and like down. We were so excited because it was a fight. They were union busting,
and
really
Starbucks plays real dirty. Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And the organization that I was working for, the nonprofit, which by the way, nonprofits are notoriously anti-union. I had a conversation with one of the organizers for Buffalo Starbucks when I was at Cornell studying labor, and he happened to be one of the speakers for this class I was TAing for, and he told me, like, he's like, "Yo, nonprofits are like, I don't want to touch them unless you have 100% support, because it gets ugly." And I lived that. I lived that in 2 different places, but one of them, it got really, really ugly. But yeah, that experience, and after we won our election, and then being in bargaining and realizing that's another entire fight. And then we can get into it, but we also had to fight 2 decertification petitions. It was bad. When I say like we fought everything, we literally were fighting everything. And that experience was really eye-opening because it was like, okay, you don't win after your election and you don't win after your contract. You have to fight forever.
Yeah.
And at one point you're kind of like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah. That's just what class war is, though, right? I mean, like the thing is that if you're not fighting back, then you are just losing the class war, because if you don't have the union, if you don't have even the ability to sit at that table and bargain with this millionaire about what you deserve and what you can and can't have or whatever, if you can't even get to that point, then how screwed are you? Because you're going to get not even scraps. You get nothing.
Nothing.
They won't even throw you a bone.
Yeah, literally nothing. So yeah, and I think that experience being a rank and file, being a worker who's organized with their coworkers, and like being in the nitty gritty and the nuance of what it takes to actually, win an election and to win a contract and to keep your contract, it changes something in you. And for me, it absolutely did. So it's a saying, right? Some of the best organizers, some bosses make the best organizers. So I want to thank my old bosses for being kind of like the reasons why I created All Things Labor, Yeah.
And like when you say the boss is the best organizer, you are not kidding. I mean, like I think one of the things about the Starbucks campaign, at least at the early stages, it's a little bit different now, but it's still doing, all kinds of really bang up work. They're getting new unions all the time. But when it started, I think one of the things that they were really good at, and this is not new. It's not like groundbreaking. It's just groundbreaking in the fact that what it was with Starbucks and how they were able to communicate it through not mostly, but like through a lot of social media and a lot of like documenting what went down. But like they were highlighting all the crazy crap that the bosses would do and like the ways that they would try and union bust. And like it's not like it's different in every single situation. There is a playbook. There is an entire economy of union busting consultant firms, lawyers, all this stuff. And the reason that this entire industry exists is to prevent you and your coworkers from getting a union. They will spend more money on union consultants and union busting law firms and all this stuff, anti-union lawyers. Like we saw this at Amazon. They've spent out the wazoo to bust them. They were getting the local area in Alabama to change the streetlight schedule so that organizers could not walk up to cars that are stopped at the red light and make sure that it flowed a lot faster, just so that that would be a union busting tactic. I mean, it's really, the boss does not want to get you a union, and they are much more concerned about you getting power in the workplace, having any kind of foothold, any kind of say, any kind of anything, than they are with the money of it all. That's just greasing the wheels or whatever. You want to talk about that a little bit?
100%. And actually, when I was studying labor, getting my master's degree in labor at Cornell, one of the professors from Rutgers University came and gave a presentation. I'm blanking on her name, but she was speaking about her research in Bessemer, Alabama. And I don't think people understand, like even within labor, right, there was a lot of kind of like criticisms, and we should always be reflecting on how our organizing campaigns are going. But one of the things, I don't think people understand like the level of union busting that have, like, this is a multi-million-dollar industry. And what you were saying is absolutely true. Like they were not only stopping like the street lights and working with the city, right? Because then you're creating company towns. Like Amazon's giving all this money to this town,
and they have leverage over these localities and their budgets.
Exactly. And I know for Whole Foods, for example, with Jeff Bezos, they have like heat maps at Whole Foods. So like if they see any of coworkers like together, if they see heat together and people talking, like they'll be like, knock it off. It's it's
that
really
is
severe.
So crazy.
It's wild. And actually, here's like a kind of wild note, is the attorney who's the general counsel that's representing Amazon is the same attorney that was attempting to union bust and failed. So loser to her, but failed trying to union bust a small nonprofit, the second workplace that I was at. She's also the same attorney that had successfully union busted Volkswagen Tennessee like years ago. So, and then when I met up with Chris Moss and Derek Palmer out in New York, literally it was like, hey, these are some of the tactics, like watch this. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. They're using all this text. The only thing is is like the amount of money that they have, and also just how much of the law really is not here to protect workers. And I think when people, like, oh, well, it should be up to the choice. It should be up to the choice of each worker. I'll give you an example of why I think it's so unfair. I had to sit through 3 captive audience meetings when the second time that my coworkers and I were organizing. So for those who don't know, a captive audience meeting is when you're forced by management or by your boss to sit down in a mandatory meeting and basically be harassed, be interrogated, or drilled and told why unions are bad from the perspective of management. But it's scary. If you are sitting in a room with a bunch of managers and there's a power dynamic, I think people try to like pretend that's not true, but it's real. If someone has the power to fire you, or they have the power to like cut your hours or impact your, your rent, everything, your healthcare, you're gonna have fear. Of course, it's normal, and they know that, right? So I remember sitting through those meetings and having them. And I was the only worker in Los Angeles that actually had to sit through 3 because I was part of like a social service team. So I was also not only in the LA team, but I was in the national team for all the other social services that were nationwide. So they jumped on that call. And I remember having spoken to HR previously about not being singled out in meetings. And it made me feel really like I basically made a report to HR. And I said, hey, I don't like this about something else, something that was going on. During that meeting, the HR president ended up singling me out because I was the only Los Angeles worker in that social service national call. And basically people were asking questions. So when we unionized, our boss sent out an email nationwide to all 200 employees, even though Los Angeles was organizing, we were like 14 or 15, and basically said, LA is trying to unionize. We like what unions have done in the past, but we don't need it now. And we especially don't need it here, because we're a nonprofit. We're here to work with immigrant children, and we want to be able to work directly with you, not through a third party, which is, anti-union.
I love doing a third party thing.
Every single time. This is why I think it's so important too, for workers to remember when we're talking about our unions, like not saying the union, our union. That is our union.
You are the union.
You are the union. I am the union. You are the union. We are the union. And I remember in that conversation, it started getting kind of like messy, and I didn't want to say anything, right? And because I don't want to talk on behalf of my colleagues, but she singles me out, and it also doesn't dawn on me that she's also happens to be a woman of color. So it's like a lot of these organizations use identity politics, right? To then be able to say, well, I'm not harassing you. What are you talking about? You and I are both women of color. So even though she told me point blank, when I finally did open my mouth and said, I don't feel comfortable talking about this because these are not the people I'm organizing with. I'm organizing with Los Angeles, right? And I said, if anyone has questions, they can ask me. And then she ended up saying, you've made it very clear where you stand. And if you don't want people harassing you, you shouldn't be asking so many questions. This is what the HR president said to me in front of my colleagues who are not even from LA.
Yeah, that's a show. There, she is trying to show you up 100%. Like,
yep. Yeah, and then
the thing that people don't understand about nonprofits is it's like, well, why would you go out for people like us who we all worked at nonprofits at some time, because they have it's like you're saying, they're the worst because it's so much easier to organize at XYZ widget company because we make widgets. Like, of course we're here for the money, but the first thing they hit you with at a nonprofit is think of the babies, think of the kids, think of the animals, think of whatever your cause is that you're getting a paycheck for. They'll say, oh, well, you're abandoning that. No, they'll play that first before they do anything else. It's disgusting. I feel you.
Totally. And I saw a lot of that when I was a school teacher too. I taught school for 8 years, special ed. And literally, these people who are on the school board are like millionaire business demons. And they're going to come up there and tell me that, like, I don't care about kids, and they do. Another thing on that too, you mentioned the DEI thing and like the way that sort of identity is sort of weaponized and stuff like that. Like, that is an entire episode, that is entire conversation, because the ideas of diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and the policies that go along with it, which is like a huge whipping post when it comes to like right wing using it as just like a boogeyman or whatever. But like some of the stuff that you mentioned is very, very real. The superintendent at my school that in my school system when I was in Jefferson Parish, he literally used he's a white guy. He's he's ridiculous. He's a demon from hell. But like, he used a Ta-Nehisi Coates quote from his book to justify like closing 4 schools and like, consolidating and doing all this other kinds of stuff. And like, I got my critiques of especially Coates' older work or whatever, but like, damn, bro, that's really like, I was like there, I was sitting in the meeting and I'm just like trying not to just like scream, you know what I mean?
Well, it's like that reminds me of REI, right? When REI, they stated online too that when they were organizing out in New York City, I believe the management and their anti-union attorneys began the captive audience meetings with land acknowledgements.
Oh yeah.
I love it, dude. To quote Hassan Piker, everyone's a liberal.
Oh no.
Everyone's a liberal, dude. Come on. Anytime I see land acknowledgement, anytime I hear that, and it's not from an actual indigenous person, my eyes just roll like a shark in the back of my head, and my soul tries to leave my body, and I'm like having to pull it down, like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when the weasels are laughing to death. It's like you got to grab them, the ghost, and I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna just pass away. Yeah. I cannot take it from these people, man.
And on that point, like it really, and again, like the way, at least in my experience, and I mean, not a surprise, I'm a white guy, but like the way I talk about it and the way that I think about it is the working class is the most diverse set of people that exist on this planet, period. The working class includes every single conceivable identity, every single conceivable like ethnicity, every gender, all this stuff. And like, unfortunately, there is this sort of like image, and maybe we can talk about this next, that is that like traditional labor, and it's rooted in some of the actual labor history of this country and worldwide. But like, there's this image that needs to be destroyed of like unions being like white blue collar workers or whatever, being kind of sexist and kind of racist or whatever. And that's just like, that's not the reality. I mean, I worked at a union not too long ago where we would organize janitors, and it was just every possible identity. Most of them were poor. We worked at airports, and there were people from every different country you can think of as a part of these bargaining units and stuff like that. And it's just like, that is not the reality of what labor is in 2025.
Jeff, I kind of want to ask you a question real quick. Is it, I mean, you've done labor organizing like forever now. Is it really like that? Because I know that stereotype does exist of like, the racist Teamster or UAW guy or whatever. But then I also think, stuff when I was a kid and I didn't know anything, like the AFSCME commercials or like, the United Garment Makers, Sisterhood of Garment Makers Union, whatever, look for the union label. And there was like all kinds of like cis men who were proud to be in like the ladies garment making union. So it's like, what's more true if you had to put a marker down on one or the other?
So to be a little bit more specific, and feel free to chime in on this anytime you want, Alex, but like, there is a history in this country of like what established labor was being very specific craft unions, and they were very specifically like oriented and worked together. That was sort of like the basis of the AFL and the Gomper style unionism that existed. I don't know if you wanted to add on to that, but like, ever since, probably since, really didn't really break through until late 90s, early 2000s when it really got diversified up. And what we have right now is a sort of we have a lot of really kind of people that have held the flame going for a really long time in the movement right now, and then a whole lot of young people coming in, and there's a little bit of a culture clash that's happening. I don't know if you wanted to add into that, Alex, but
yeah,
I think it's a very interesting dynamic in terms of like inside of labor.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to say there's a book that I love to mention that I read for actually a class that I took on communism, historicizing communism, and it's called Left Out. It's called Left Out: America's Industrial Unions. And there's a quote in it. So, but it talks about kind of the, like when the AFL and the CIO were like separate, right? And before they were coming together, and talking about how socialists and communists were really leading the most militant and most well-organized unions, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And there's a part of it where it's talking about organizing in the South, in Deep South, in Alabama. And this is back in like 1920 something, 1930. Basically, it was, there was segregation laws. They talk about having a union local, where the union like owns like the office space, let's call it, and they were having like their meetings, their chapter meetings. But by the law, they had to separate Black folks and white folks. And the union had done such a good job.
Like, I'm sorry, literal de jure segregation, like by the law. I'm sorry, yes. I just really wanted to underscore that. Please.
Yes, it was like illegal to have people and workers of different ethnicities and races to sit together. Mm-hmm. And there was a quote from, it's a really good book, I highly recommend it, but there's a quote from a white union member and organizer who, when the city or like the government officials arrived to say, hey, you need to keep like them separated. I know I can't cuss, so I'm not going to, but I'll say F instead. But the book says that when the white worker turns to the government employee and says, F you, we pay union dues, and you're not going to tell us how to run our meetings, right? And this is 1920s, 30s Alabama, mm-hmm. right? And these are some of the most militant unions. So one, yes, I want to say that there is still racism. Well, you see it. It's like it is in labor, like it is everywhere. Not to diminish it, but it is true, right? But it is absolutely diverse. It is absolutely diverse, and acting like it's not, or like it's only for white men, I think is one of the biggest misconceptions, the biggest flaws. And it's not helping our cause to actually be able to build this labor movement to what we need it to be, which is incredibly diverse.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to sort of like reframe a lot of this stuff to the present day as well, because a lot of these sort of legality lines of like who has rights and who doesn't, they've become a lot less race-based, and they've become a lot more immigration status-based. And that's the way that they've sort of divided workers across this one bright red line, because that's the whole point of this whole thing, is to divide workers up and to have one set of workers with no rights and another set of workers that are just, crabs in a bucket fighting for scraps or whatever, and have them fight, looking at each other, fighting one another, and not fighting the boss, who's the real person that set this whole thing up.
I literally just made a TikTok video kind of talking about this.
Maybe I'm just like copying you. I don't know.
It's just I just saw, if anyone who doesn't follow More Perfect Union, they have like really good like content where they're showing kind of like really the stories of workers and struggles and fights and resilience, right? And I like one of the videos that they had posted recently where they're talking about Trump supporters, right, that are like regretting their vote because they're getting the Medicare cut, and almost all it was a viral video, and almost every single of the most like popular comments were like, you see, F you, this is what you get, now you're gonna live with your consequences, blah 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 blah. And I think as an organizer, this is why I said in the video, and I'm gonna say it again, you need to organize your workplace, especially if you consider yourself a leftist. I need you to organize your workplace. Because organizing means being in conversation. Real true democracy means being in conversation with people that you may not like and that may not like you. But you understand at the end of the day, you have more in common with that individual that you think is kind of annoying or might kind of suck, but you still want them to live a life of dignity and respect. And you understand that the main boss are the billionaires or the people that own capital and the people that are actually controlling your life, not this other person right here that is like across from you who's really annoying, Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what you're saying, especially with.
And they are so annoying, by the way.
Sorry?
I say they're so annoying. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And they are, like, some of them, and I said that too. I was like, you know what? Some people that I'm in struggle with, I find incredibly annoying. They're so annoying, and it's fine. You don't have to be buddies with every single person you're organizing, and you're not. And until you understand that, unless you're looking for the perfect ally comrade, you're never going to organize at the mass scale that we need to organize. And this is not saying that we're becoming, I'm going to be best friends with like super racist. I'm not saying that, right?
No.
But I'm saying people are way too quick on social media to name, like, categorize individuals as something and then discard them as a human being. And I think liberals tend to do this a lot, you know. And it's just like kind of this higher than thou. Well, actually, I've always been right. It's like, here's your cookie. Congratulations. Can we get to organizing?
Yeah, totally. And you see a lot of that stuff with the liberals. You know, we talk trash about liberals here all the time. It's a safe place to talk trash about liberals. I mean, like it always makes me think. And the Democrats and the liberals have really dialed it up when it comes to like this new Trump term. They're being like they're like, I think they're trying to make people hate them more than they possibly could. You ever thought you could? So they could just essentially just not. They can essentially just say, oh, our political movement is dead and we just have to do everything the Republicans want or whatever, and just go straight down. Again, I keep saying this over and over again, greasing the wheels on the bullet train to hell of fascism. And we're really kind of like smooth sailings right now. And again, the what you're talking about is a counter to that. It's like one of the only things potentially that could save us. You know, it's not gonna, the thing that's definitely not gonna freaking save us is saying that, you know, those people in North Carolina who got hit by a hurricane deserve it because they voted for Trump. I mean, that's insane.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And you know, you bring up the Democrats. I had to go to the DNC last year. It was like for some work related
to you.
Thank you. No, it was I was there working with a union that I very much respect. So that was cool. But being there honestly was really eye-opening. And like what you're saying right now, like it was gross, man. It was like a bunch of nerds who like now think they're cool because they're like in proximity to someone who has power. Like the amount, let me tell you, there was it Pete Buttigieg, and he was surrounded by like 10 people that had to like protect him because people were like acting like he was a beetle. I was like, the Secretary of Transportation, really? Like that's who you're gonna like fangirl over? I don't know. It was wild. And
you can do better, sweetheart.
Like, get up, stand up, girl, stand up. But
people will do crazy things for a lanyard and an open bar. They will do the wildest. So as somebody who was I was elected delegate for Bernie. Like I got it. Like it's intoxicating. It really is, because you know, everything's open for you. You're treated like a rock star. You're treated like you're the most important person. And it's just like, yeah, I could see how people would sell out for this, and at the end of the day, it ain't worth nothing.
It ain't even money. It's like validation.
Exactly.
I mean?
But for so little, you know what I mean? Like open bar, really? Like, I mean, go to a wedding. I don't know. You know what I mean?
No,
it's
you're
just
right.
There's so much that like it's just, for me, it's sad. Like you're selling out your class for a weekend in Chicago
with like getting nothing good.
I don't know. And I mean, and I was in the mayor's lounge too. You know what I mean? So like, I had like the view. And honestly, when Kamala Harris started to speak, I felt I had Robert, what you're talking about, kind of like that out of body experience. I literally felt like I was if you've ever seen the Hunger Games, I felt like I was in the Capitol, when she started talking about the border and was like, we're going to become the most lethal military. And everyone was cheering. I'm like, am I at the RNC? I wanted to cry of anger. I was so upset. And then how she like belittled the Palestinian liberation and the way that like there is a literal genocide that is happening right now in Palestine. I was like, I can do something right now where I scream really, really loudly. I'm gonna get tackled probably from Secret Service, but like maybe there's something I can do. The only thing that was stopping me was the fact that I was there to support a union. I didn't want to make them an issue for them. But I was like, never again. Like, please don't invite me to this. This was the worst.
Yeah. You're listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. Alex from All Things Labor is our guest. And we're talking, I guess we've gotten to the point where, and I think this is a reason we should be turning to organize your workplace, support whatever is going on, go to a picket line in your area, whatever it is. But first, organize your workplace, because politics are so bleak. It feels like it's just over. And the only thing that I can even think of doing right now with my life that brings me any kind of validation is the wrong word, but like that makes me feel powerful in any kind of way is talking and organizing with coworkers, or I mean, like, I'm getting on staff. I work for unions now, but like it is to a certain extent not just building that power. It is almost like you're doing it. You're benefiting, people who in workplaces, but also it's a little bit of an addiction, a little bit of a buzz. It's like a feeling that you've never had before, and you just kind of like you chase it like a gambler. Having power in that way is very intoxicating, and it's not like that BS, like pathetic, like groupies for people to judge stuff. You know what I mean? It's like actually something.
That's so funny that you say that, because having organized with my coworkers 3 times, I guess it would be kind of like an addiction. Yeah.
It's like a healthy one, maybe. I don't know.
The one thing I do remember from 2016, I guess, was when Bernie ran against Hillary first time. And I remember because Louisiana delegation and South Carolina delegation were small, so they group us together. Did you do those like? No, you were with a union, so you didn't have like there wasn't like an insurgent candidate that you were like representing, trying to get some kind of concessions out of. So they grouped us all together, and I remember how badly, like how coldly we were treated by like the Hillary Clinton people. But I will remember this woman, this older black woman from South Carolina, she was an Obama Democrat who delegate. She told me later on that, she was a part of an insurgent campaign that actually succeeded for what that was worth, what we all thought that was worth at the time. But they were like, after our little breakfast, she actually walked, tiny lady, walked up to the lectern and put her hands on it and said, I just got something to say. She said, the way y'all treating these Bernie people is wild. She goes, y'all remember how when we all supported Barack and we got treated like a dog? And she said, now look around at these kids. He said, these kids are the future of the Democratic Party, and you better bring them in and you better give them something. Because if you don't, this is all going to fall apart. And prophetic. And I will remember that woman. I hope she might have passed on by now, but like what she spoke in that thing, and nobody had anything to say because they were shamed.
They knew she was right.
Yep.
And Bernie was just a social democrat. He wasn't even that great. My God. Couldn't even get that. They're acting like we had Mao Zedong.
Can I say something? I met him at the DNC. Actually,
Bernie?
His wife sat right next to me. His wife is actually very kind. He's a grumpy old man. He is a grumpy old man.
Oh yeah.
He's kind of rude. No, he is rude. He's incredibly rude. I was gonna say hi, and he literally put his finger up to my face. He's like, not now. And I was like, damn, old man. Like,
that's that New York. I mean, honestly, like it's New York Jews. Like,
when I found out that he's like, I think they said that he's related to Larry David, that they're somehow cousins. I'm like, I get it. That makes sense. So now I'm like not upset about it anymore.
I'm glad. Yeah, because if you spend any time in New York, like that's nice. That's hello.
And not to make any kind of like defense or whatever, but like I imagine being like the guy that's been right for 30, 40 years in Congress, and like everybody like just crapping all over you like every single time you speak up. That might put a chip on your shoulder. I don't know. Not to say that he should have like taken out on like normal people or whatever, but like that could put.
Yeah. So like kind of like what Robert was saying, like you want to invite the younger folks in. I don't like, and I get it. I'm not sure how I feel in terms of like you want to also give them like their space and etc. Like, and like we were at the DNC, like it wasn't at his house, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and you're an elected official, and I'm a constituent. You know what I mean? Like, so you know what, you do owe me something because my tax-paying money is paying your salary. Mm-hmm. So no.
Well,
don't be rude.
I had kind of the reverse of that. I saw him on the street in Philly and said nothing to him because I was just like, he was with Jane, and I was just like, nope. Because I just knew what you're saying. I already knew. So it's like, but I'm glad you made peace with it. But yeah, you're right. You're 100% right, though.
I will say this, though, and maybe, I don't know if this can make you feel any better or whatever. And it does make me, It's good in the sense that like we shouldn't be venerating any of these people as heroes or whatever the hell. One, and then two, also, and we need, this is the part that us young people, I'm 40 something, but like I'm not that young, but like, you know, younger-ish people or people who actually believe in things, unlike most of the establishment Democrats or whatever. We need to figure out what the future of any kind of movement is going to look like, who is going to be the ones that step up for this kind of thing, and make sure when that happens that it's not going to be like the Barack Obama, you know, saying the nice things about the union, but dumping and giving up and waving the white flag on the EFCA, or Joe Biden, you know, promising that he's going to pass the PRO Act when he knows damn well that that's not going to happen and he's not going to fight for it. He wouldn't even put, you know, the Kristen Cinemas or the Joe Manchins, any of their feet to the fire on this kind of thing. He would just basically like, oh, we're going to pass the PRO Act, Jack. And then, oh, we can't pass the PRO Act, Jack, but we're going to keep trying, like that kind of thing. And like there needs to be an actual visionary. This is why I'm like Sean Fain, Sarah Nelson 2028 or whatever. You know? Get these like actual union leaders, not actually, I'd actually probably doing better in the leadership of their respective unions. It's like half a joke, but like there does need to be some kind of like labor unions driving this political movement, not them being, you know, the unions essentially tailing these two horrible political parties that both represent the ruling class. And that's why, you know, when you see somebody like Zoran in New York, you know, front running in the mayoral race up there, or even like locally, we had one of our, she's not a member, but she's definitely like very closely associated with the DSA in Richmond, Kenya Gibson. She got elected to the city council here recently. So I mean, that it's got to be a national movement to make this happen. And I guess, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? What are some kind of ways that you've sort of, you know, I'm not going to say, you know, answer the question, make the movement happen, draw the blueprint right now, but like, what do you think about when you think about the future of these kinds of things? We can talk about that. Talk about drop the blueprint after the show. Okay. This is the central committee.
And I completely agree with you. And actually also met Sean Fain and Sarah Nelson actually at the DNC, both incredibly kind, very, 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 very kind. Take that, Bernie. No, but like what you're saying, like two things that I want to say. One, totally, like we need to like kill this idea of heroes, like, you know, and not like idolizing individuals, whether they're politicians or even labor leaders, honestly. So I think
they're going to disappoint you 100%
every single time. Don't have heroes and do not work for them. I'll tell you that right now. Do not, you know what I mean? Like you can be inspired by your comrades and one another, but there's also a thing that we want to like kill the ego. And I think when you tell someone constantly like you're so this, obviously it's going to go to their head. So I think also for the well-being of that individual, don't do that, right?
Yeah, you don't want to mess them up.
Yeah, and then they're gonna think they're like godlike, and then when they think that anything that they do is the correct answer, and then everybody is wrong. It's just not helpful. I've seen it happen, but I completely agree in terms of we need more folks. Honestly, we need more people who are workers, who are rank and file, who are, you know, presidents of the labor unions involved in politics. We do. I don't want people to perceive this or misinterpret this to say that everyone who is like an incredible organizer should be going into politics. I'm not saying that, but it is important to have people literally who are labor, not labor adjacent, like Democrats. And I'm telling you this because can't trust them. And I'll say this, when I used to work, I'm not going to say any names, but when I used to work at a place that was very close to politics, and it was like very left-leaning political stuff that was happening in California, I saw firsthand all these like Democrats that get applauded and get the roses for, you know, passing laws that protect workers. I'm going to tell you in the back end, that is happening because labor is pushing for that and is demanding that. And it's just like literally on their butt constantly, like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's a constant fight to get them to do the bare minimum, you know? And it's just like, And then they get all the flowers. They were like, you know, it happens all the time in the state of California with like Gavin Newsom. Like he signed something for farm workers, and they were just like, he's like, oh yeah. Like first of all, also saw him at the DNC. Did not say hi to him, obviously, because I'm like, I am not saying. They're like, that's your governor. I was like,
maybe some 4-letter words.
I was like, ID gaff. I said ID gaff. He was like right here. And I had my California rugby hat because I used to play rugby for Cal. And he was staring at it. And I literally looked away. I'm like, I am not speaking to you. I don't like you. Like,
your haircut looks stupid.
But you know, but exactly that. Like, it's just, it's if we can have, we need to have more workers that are running for these positions so they actually understand what it means when we're asking for better protections and laws, because you've been through it. You know what I mean? This is, again, going back to organizing your workplace. You need to organize your workplace because you need to understand what it actually means to be going up against a multi-million-dollar industry that is union busting. Yep. And you're not going to understand that if you're a career politician. You're going to understand that if you lived it.
Yes, 100%. And again, like that needs to be something, that needs to be a change that happens with a lot of the sort of established leadership, the sort of, you know, I mean, let's be, you know, it's not all older folks, but there is a previous generation that is used to things being done a certain kind of way. There's used to, I mean, they grew up. I mean, I'm giving them credit here. They were in the movement when the light was at the lowest. They were in the movement, these, you know, these older folks, like in the 80s and like right after the Patco, and they've seen the depths of it, not to make an excuse of it, but they've kept the, you know, they've kept the fire burning, and it's time for a lot of them to pass the baton, honestly. I mean, like let's keep this relay race going, because it's got to be forever. And more generally, I think, because, you know, we see that reflected also in our politics. I mean, Congress is, and like every elected official, it's just like they're all north of like 70. It's like, it seems like it's just this really long hold on that, you know, I'm not going to talk that much stuff about baby boomers right now because that's not the focus of the situation, but that generation has held on to power for such a long period of time. And you can see the cracks and what they're doing starting to break through, but they are still, like, what they end up doing is they hold tighter. And I don't even really mess with generational politics that much, but it's a thing. And you sort of see there's a transition point that can happen, right? You can have the transition be to, you know, from Nancy Pelosi, who's a zillion years old, to Hakeem Jeffries, to this like soulless demon who only cares about crypto and like Israel. Or you can have people who actually step up that want to fight and actually fight for working people. You know, that's sort of my thought on this. And that has to happen not just across like the politics side of things, but it needs to be across. There's going to be an inevitable generational change that takes place across the labor movement as well. And that space needs to be filled by people who are down to organize workplaces and fight, and not do the old thing of just like, well, we really hope the Democrats are going to do the good thing, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is also why I'm involved in DSA. And and I think what you're saying reminds me of just like this idea of passing the baton, right? Like, I think a good organizer is that you are identifying potential other organizers and leaders, and you're passing the baton. And I think what we see, what you're talking about, is like in some previous generations, not all, right? Because I mean, I have a mentor who's incredible.
No, I don't mean to be talking crap about previous generations. There's amazing people that have come from all of them. Like, that's my
totally.
Yeah.
Just like there's some like really crappy people that are part of like my generation, you know what I mean? That like who are like young millennials or whatever, or even Gen Z. But but again, I think that what we need to do is do more of that. So we should be organizing our workplaces, identifying leaders, getting them more involved, and having them realize that everything is political, right? So even if you're not using the language, you know, like sometimes people get really like, one thing that I know sometimes on TikTok, especially with like leftist spaces, it's just like this, like this title and this. I'm gonna be so honest, I don't know half of that, and I don't care. I'm gonna be reading, and because people don't, because working people aren't, you know, they're not
read their Hegel, they've not read their Marx, have not read their Lenin or any of that stuff. Like, come on.
Exactly. But like, if you can have a conversation, that's one thing that I think is missing a lot too, is that some people have no idea how to talk to other folks. Like, you have no idea how to talk to working class people in a way that is not belittling, a way that is not condescending, or honestly just disrespectful. Like, sometimes I'll get DMs, right? I'll get DMs all the time, and then sometimes I gotta be like, hold up, I know you're not coming with me with disrespect. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and it's not even like they're meaning it, but like if they're asking for like support or anything, it's not even like, hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah. It's just like, do this. Mm-hmm. Excuse you? You know? And I think it's just a reminder. We need to, like, communications. Like, we need to learn how to communicate with one another in a more empathetic way. And a lot of folks on the left don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basic
socialization. What kills me about it is that you have on the I can think about the Democratic Party is that you have you have people, Gen Xers and older, are quick to call millennials and Zoomers and Gen Alpha entitled, but then they're the first ones to be like, "Oh, it's my time." Oh, like I've been here in the fight for so long, and even though I might not be the best person for the job, it's now my time. I watched an interview with Katie Porter talking about how she wants to run for California governor, but if Kamala Harris steps in the race, a perennial loser, she would clear the field for her. And I'm like, who does that serve? Who does this attitude of now it's, we're going to pass over younger, more popular, more capable people in the movement so older people can have their turn and just destroy everything that people have worked hard for. It's sick.
It reminds me of, you guys ever seen The Sopranos? Like, I think one of the best shows ever. It reminds me of like Tony Soprano with his uncle, and it's just kind of like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, Tony's clearly best for the job, but like, I forgot the uncle's name. But the uncle's like, no, it's like, it's my turn. What are you talking about? Like, it's my turn to be in this position, and it reminds me of that. And I'm not saying that they're gangsters or anything. I mean, they're nerds, but it's a lot lot.
I wish they were gangsters.
They do. No, they do.
I wish they were that cool.
Yeah.
You ain't lying.
So I do want to like hammer on the like lefties sort of thing. I had two more kind of questions I wanted to go through if we have time. One of them was, let's do this one first. When it comes to these sort of like platforms, like social media, Instagram, Twitch, whatever, do you see that as, and like, I don't mean it in the sense that like, we need to hear Gavin Newsom do a freaking podcast with like Steve Bannon and like all these crazy people, but like there's this debate ever since this freaking election, and God, I don't really want to talk about that much, but like there's this idea that communication, the tools of communication are not being used by like these organs, like unions. I think could probably do a better job of communicating like through podcast or through some of these social media methods. And what people get caught up on is the tool for messaging and being present in that space instead of what the message is of like, what are you doing for helping people? Nobody gives a crap if you have, Democrats choose your fighter introducing these individuals like stupid, cringy TikTok videos. Like, you need to be saying like, hey, we're fighting to stop Trump from cutting Medicaid. Like, we're like, that's what people care about. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. So I think one of the things I've noticed, like doing communication works now and kind of like these like labor spaces, is the lack of understanding of why we're talking about Twitch and TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram and all these different platforms. And yes, they're problematic for many different reasons, but this is the reality. The majority of working people, especially younger generations, are obtaining and receiving information and connecting to other people on these platforms.
Yep.
So if we want to organize at a mass scale, we need to meet workers where they're at. That's one of the biggest reasons why I ended up creating a TikTok account, was because I was trying to meet workers where they're at and doing the same thing with Instagram. And it seems like, it's like institutionalized labor or Democrats or liberals, they don't understand that. And also there's a difference. Like you brought up the elections, Kamala Harris HQ like
Oh my
account
god,
on
that was the
TikTok.
cringiest account on TikTok. Oh my god.
You know, but like it was perceived as like, wow, you get it. Like
Yeah.
whoever's running this, you get it.
Only by people who were like Democrat loyalists or consultants, right?
And
Not
that's
by
and
like
this
I don't know one single person that I've ever talked to face to face that wasn't tied to a consulting firm or the Democratic Party that was like, "Damn, did you see the latest Kamala HQ video?"
we need to talk about consulting for a whole other hour because I have a lot of thoughts on that as well. But 100%, there is a difference between being able to communicate with workers and like doing cringy stuff or whatever, and then also using these platforms as a way to have the one-on-one conversations. Yeah. So the reason why I also created my accounts online, which I haven't shared yet here, is because I saw social media with my coworkers and I be used as a really effective tool when we were bargaining, because we know when bosses have all the power to send an email at all hours to scare us and to communicate with workers, we as workers do not have that with, we obviously Los Angeles, we could talk with one another, but it was also during the height of the pandemic. So then we're not in an office. What ended up happening was after we had unionized, there was someone in the Seattle office that had reached out to us because during a DEI meeting that I was a part of, someone we were complaining. We're like, oh my gosh, people of color keep getting screwed over in these spaces. And this is right after we had already filed for an election, and the president had told everybody, like, hey, LA filed, and we really discouraged them from organizing. I took the opportunity during that call to say, if anybody has any questions about why LA is like organizing, here's my private email. Go ahead and give me a call. I got reprimanded by an attorney from San Francisco who said, Alex, this isn't the space for that. And I said, I know. This is why I left my number so they can give me a call. So long and behold, someone from Seattle reached out to me, and they're like, I've never met them before. They're like, hey, I want to talk. Me and my coworkers jump on a call with her and her coworkers. A month later, Seattle files for their union election.
Let's go.
That's awesome.
And so it was incredible. And then we both filed with a machinist. And so then we were like, so then we were union siblings were talking among ourselves. But another thing that was really helpful about social media was when we were bargaining, we needed to get the word out because our president was, every time we finished a bargaining session, they would send out an email with lies, right? And we had a bunch of anti-union people in our bargaining unit. So it just became really, really, it was just bad. It was just like a really bad space. So then we wanted to use social media, and DSA was the only org, by the way, in Los Angeles that's providing us any kind of support. And this is why I became a DSA member and got involved specifically in DSA labor, because it provides support for us. And I meant literally like sharing our petition, things like that. When we were bargaining, we started creating these memes, and it was actually really fun, and it was hilarious because management had no idea what it meant. Like we used like Star Wars because they were withholding healthcare from us. So we had like the Sith Lord holding the lightsaber, like when he's telling Anakin, like, you want this, don't you? And it's like healthcare. And they were so mad.
I'm sorry.
And no, I love Star Wars. I was a big fan growing up. It's like my dad's favorite.
Yeah, me too.
It's good. So when that was happening, management ended up using LA and tried to pin LA and Seattle as enemies. And they basically said, look how mean LA is. LA is so disrespectful. LA is going to impact the work that we're doing with immigrant youth. I really hope that we don't get our funding cut because of how mean they are. And look how nice Seattle is because Seattle wasn't online. So it turns out when I went to grad school, I was able to get get grant money to do a research. And I went back into this reflective study on LA and Seattle, which is like, we need to make space to be reflective because we learn a lot in those moments. So I reached out, I went to Seattle and I was interviewing the workers there, and they ended up telling me, and this is what happened. They ended up creating their own account, their own Instagram account after our president sent out an email saying, oh, LA is so mean, Seattle's so great. They were pissed. They were like, we don't want to be used by management as a way to union bust LA. It's disgusting. So they made an Instagram account. They created their own, they had a bargaining committee, and then they had a social media committee. And then their first post was, we are in solidarity with our co-workers in Los Angeles, and we're not going to allow the president to use us to pin us against LA. We're both fighting for the same thing. After that, the president stopped sending emails trying to pin Seattle and LA because Seattle wasn't allowing it anymore. So this is the power of social media when we're able to use it in an effective manner. And I think sometimes, institutionalized labor, people who don't understand social media think it means posting really cringy crap. And it's like, that's not what it is, right? It's about creating ways to have more people involved and get more people connected to then have conversations off these platforms.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should cut it there, but thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. Where can people find All Things Labor?
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok for as long as it is around, Instagram, also trying YouTube Shorts, Bluesky, and that's it.
Thank you so much for joining us, and you're welcome to come back anytime you want.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally. You have been listening to Good Morning Comrade on WHIV LP New Orleans. We love you. Bye-bye. Roll up on, 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 roll up on.